Um, so this will be the physical inventory training for TSO3. If you have done a Neptune training with us or a Neptune PI, there are a couple little changes that you'll want to pay attention to, so we'll talk through those. But this is currently our schedule of when team members will be completing the PI. So I think, John, I see you're on here. If you've got a date for me, or if that might not be your location, that's the only one I think we're missing. The rest of them we're splitting between 2 different weeks. So if you see any problems with the schedule, just ping me in the chat or let Heather know and we'll get you scheduled correctly. But we are moving forward with the 2 locations and hoping that we can start that pretty quickly. So I'll go right into the calendar. So this calendar is actually our Neptune calendar. I really should have made one for this, but we want to keep the same kind of idea. So it is going to be a little bit condensed compared to our normal PI. So you've got your key over here. The things that everybody wants to pay attention to is really that green, the field tech. The inventory team looks a little pinkish, and that's going to be the actions that we take as a group. So I'm going to start off with just where we're at currently and what it'll look like next week for us. So currently we're cleaning up work orders, cleaning up submitted orders, making sure if you guys have done any transfers that we're getting those received in. And then anything we've said we've shipped to you but you haven't received in, we're just going to receive those in for you. Unfortunately, how the system works is no matter what, we would have to cycle count it out if you didn't actually receive it. So those are all getting received in and we're getting those actions done by the end of the day today. On Sunday, the things we really want to make sure you guys are doing is all work orders have to be completely submitted for your TSO3. So if you do a Neptune and TSO3 or anything like that, you can continue to work on Neptune parts, but we're talking just TSO3 or your VP4. Sorry, we call them TSO3 here, but your VP4 parts. So everything needs to be submitted for work orders no matter what by Sunday. That says 7 p.m. I'm really looking for that to be completed by 5 if possible, and then make sure everything has been received in by 5 as well. On Sunday this week, I'm going to be pulling all of our inventory locations and data into our sheets and sending them out so that we can do a physical inventory on Monday. So like I said, this is a little condensed. And it's because we only have a specific amount of people and we also only have a couple parts per location. There's not a huge SKU list for our VP4. We think we probably can do a physical inventory and organize our inventory in the same day. So we're really looking for that to all happen on Monday. So we're going to send sheets to you. I'll show you exactly what that looks like here in a second and how the sheets work. But on Monday, as we get to Monday, everything is at this systematic frozen state. And so when we say systematic frozen state, we've got 2 systems that we're working in. And if we add your system, there's probably a total of 3 actual systems. But what we're talking about when it comes to our physical inventory, the 2 systems that matter for us are going to be SAP. That's where all of our finances lie. And then ServiceMax. And that's where all of our actual work and work orders and things lie. So how the math works out is that SAP always equals ServiceMax plus work orders. So on Sunday, I'm going to pull all of your SAP data. And so because of that calculation, that means I'm getting everything encompassing of what you would possibly have in your location. So if you still have open work orders that haven't gotten submitted all the way through the system, it's going to still show in your inventory in SAP because it hasn't been pushed through, because that ServiceMax is your ServiceMax inventory plus the open work orders. So it's going to be the bigger picture of it. So don't fret that if you see some things that you just put on a work order, that's okay. That's because we want to see the bigger picture, and you're just going to let us know you don't have that physically, and that should be that should actually be a good check. It's on a work order, so I don't have it physically. We actually had a lot of Neptune situations where we said we had it physically and it was on a work order at the same time, which made no sense. So we had to work through a lot of that through Neptune. So we're coming into Monday. We essentially have all of our work orders. We got everything to a frozen state. I have sent you, and when I say I have sent you, I've sent to Heather. Heather has then sent out to all of you your physical inventory sheets, and you'll start your physical inventory. So you're going to be organizing your inventory while you're counting it. I will go over the sheets once again here shortly, but we want to make sure that you're being as organized as possible, and then trying to make sure you get your counts to us by the end of the day on Monday, so that we can start reconciliation on Tuesday. So reconciliation, there's a lot of other things that kind of go on that we'll be doing behind the scenes, but reconciliation is the most important part for us to start Tuesday so that we can get you unfrozen as quickly as possible. So you're at a frozen state starting Sunday at 5 o'clock. You cannot be in the system at all. You pull in, you send us your physical inventory. On Tuesday, we start reconciliation. And how we do reconciliation is we take your physical count against what you show systematically in ServiceMax with your work orders. And then we do the math to make SAP match that, ServiceMax match that. And then we can finally unfreeze your location. And so we would then send to Heather an unfreezing email to let them know you guys can be in the system at that time. So a couple little things there.
Question.
Yeah.
So I've gotten a parts transfer request from Christina Ludwig to Jeff Bowman. It needs to go out. That needs to be done before. So I'm going to try to get that done on Saturday night if I get home in time. Otherwise, it's not going to happen until Monday.
Okay. It's just a parts transfer.
That is correct.
Have the physical parts moved already?
They have not. I just got the request this morning, and I'm not at my inventory, and I won't be home until late Saturday night.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can get them moving, honestly, and who are you sending them to?
Jeff Bowman, Senior Tech for Stryker.
Okay. Yeah. So what we would plan to do is we would just need to know where you're at with those. Because systematically they're either going to show in your inventory or his. What we would then make sure we've kind of figure out is that if you get them physically out and you've sent them, you then put them in that transfer state. Then you do not count them in your physical inventory. But if you did not get to them on time and they're still showing in your inventory, on Monday, you're going to need to take a pause, count them in your inventory, and then once we give you the unfrozen, then you can send them.
Okay.
Yep. He's doing a physical inventory at the exact same time, so that'll be all right. Okay. Great question though. So we're going to do reconciliation. We're going to unfreeze you. So the couple things that come with reconciliation. The first thing is if you, and I'll talk about this in the sheet, but if you send us anything that looks a little funky. So like I was saying, hey, I'm showing this exact serial number, this exact information on our work order, and you also say you physically have it. Confusing. We're going to reach out and ask Heather to reach out to you guys. If we have any other kind of funky things with the sheet, which I'll go over, we're going to reach out to you guys. Those are all things that slow down our reconciliation process. So we want to make sure you're really focusing on that sheet and making sure you're answering Heather in a timely fashion. The other thing is you definitely can get back to work once you submit your inventory. That is perfectly fine. You just cannot submit any work orders until we say you're unfrozen. So if you go back to work and you're getting all your stuff done, you definitely can do that. You just cannot put anything into the system that's causing anything to move systematically, because that'll create a huge problem for us. So that means if you go and you did your physical inventory on Monday, say for part A, you had 20 pieces. You go and do some work, but you're still in that frozen state, and you leave 5 pieces at a customer. If we were, excuse me, if we reached out to you and said, hey, we need you to do a recount on this, can you give us another count? You would go and count your 15 pieces. Let's say you end up finding 16, and then you left 5 at the customer. You actually have 21. You will need to know that you left 5 at the customer to add back into your count. So make sure you're just keeping track of that. but you can get back to work. We don't want you to lose a ton of time on this, but we're really hoping we get that reconciliation back to you and unfrozen pretty quickly if we follow the right steps. So any questions on the calendar?
But Carly, just to clarify, because most of the guys on here are also Neptune, they can still do normal Neptune, correct?
Yes.
They just cannot do anything VP4 related in Striker Service Max.
Correct. We cannot move, you cannot systematically move anything for VP4.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question, but this is probably for Heather. Heather, if you've noticed, I am on medical leave and short-term disability. Brad reached out to me and asked me if I could do this, and I told him I would. I've already done my inventory, but I cannot sign off a work order because if I take time on this, it kills my disability. I cannot work for MSTAR while this is going on and while I'm on disability. So let's make sure I do not get a work order, please.
Okay,
It has to be done off book.
Okay, I'll talk to Brad about that. Worst case scenario is we get it and we assign it to your supervisor. If
And I
we
just
have
do the
to.
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the other one concerns the inventory itself. So Carly, this is probably yours. When I did my inventory, I had parts that were OEM parts, not VP4. So will somebody who's doing our reconciliation know that it's an OEM part and say, okay, I got it?
So let me go over the sheet. And we'll come back to that question, John, because hopefully I'll answer your question there, but if I don't, let's come back to that. Just because I'm thinking I know what you're saying, but I might not fully know what you're saying. But it is a good segue into this. So this is what this is the actual Striker location that I sent over this morning to a tech because they were doing theirs. They had to do theirs today instead of Monday. So this is exactly what your sheet will look like. You'll see an email coming from Heather that looks just like this. What it says is each one of you have a systematic storage location. That's unfortunately, we don't mean to make it seem so robotic, but that's how we really talk about you guys is through your storage location. What's going on with SY65 that has X amount of dollar amount in it, so on and so forth. We talk about that a lot. So that is what that number is. Don't worry about it. It's just how we kind of make sure we know the systematic side looks good. It's then going to show your material part number and then the description of the part, the batch number or the serial number. This is all once again coming from the SAP side. So this is what we show you have systematically in SAP. One big change that we made is you no longer see how much we show you have or the dollar amounts you have in here. Previously, when we did Neptune, we showed that we're no longer going to do that because we did see a lot of problems where team members were just saying, yeah, that looks about right, and it wasn't super accurate. So just like before, can't click in here at all. There's nothing you can do to change. The only person who should be able to do that is Heather, because we don't want you making any changes to this data or information. We want to make sure we're paying attention to this because this is what you show systematically. So we're going to have to make changes to what, if you have a change, we're going to make a change to the systematic data. So this is the only area where you can make changes. A couple notes and questions that people had, and I'm going to just start off with what we're really looking for you to do physically. So it's called out right here, but what we really want everybody to do is do a blind count. Do not use this sheet to direct you, hey, start off by saying, I'm going to go look for a RAM 206007. I'm going to go find it. Do I have some or do I not have some? And then put it into the sheet. What we want you to do is start your inventory and count your inventory by using a blind process where you look at your inventory total. You start from left to right up to down and make sure that you get everything encompassing. And then you come back to the sheet and put the information into the sheet. When you get to the end of your physical inventory, anything that's still showing gray, and this is gray until you put something into it, that's what you zero out. Also, if you can't find it on the sheet, there's an entire add section. So do you want to go through a couple things when it comes to TSO3 that are TSO3 specifically related? The first thing is we know that there are kits out there, and we have separated parts from the kits to make them, to use them out in the field. There's only one kit that we can do that with, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know enough about it, but I will send the training I did with the Striker Techs because they had that information as well as this training out to you guys so that you have the specific parts there. And I'll also put that in the email to Heather as I'm sending it out. But for that specific kit, that is the only one that we will take the components and we'll cycle count out your kit and in the components. Everything else, if you have separated out the kit or anything like that, we would say it's a 0. You don't have that kit anymore. So I think the only one was, I want to say it was an ozone generator, but I'll make sure I send that part number that this is the only one we will take components of if you have separated the kit. Another good question is that if you have needed to scrap parts and you have not reached out to us to scrap parts, we still want to follow the scrap process. We want you to start doing that a little bit better proactively if possible. But if you had to wait and you said, hey, oh yeah, I mean, I had 3, but now I only have 2, or and I actually have 2 good ones, but I need to scrap out one of them. So I do have 3, but I realistically only have 2 good ones. As you can see in this situation, this is what we would ask you to do, is you would say your PI count is 3. So we are going to keep 3 in the system, but we're going to circle back and actually scrap out 1 because they're very different transactions. A cycle count is a cycle count in and out based off of loss, fine, gains. That's what the cycle count transaction looks like. A scrap transaction actually is something that our quality team gets involved in and says, hey, we're seeing a lot of scrap on that specific part. And so they track it and pay attention to it. So we want to make sure we're noting that so that when the quality team starts digging into that data, it's accurate. So that's exactly how you would do that. So like I said, you go through all of your parts, you end up having some physical parts that aren't on your list. You would come to this add section. What I will have on every single sheet is a list of part number and description so that you have this. A lot of times on our Neptune physical inventories, we had a lot of team members just wrote in descriptions for material. This needs to be part number because unfortunately I can't write the description into SAP to be able to make changes. It has to be the part number. So please make sure that you're putting that part number there. We will have all TSO3 part numbers here so you can copy and paste them over. But that's what we're going to need here to be able to add something in. You would add your serial number or batch if there is something, and then the count of that. Something that will cause us to something that will cause us to reach out to Heather and ask questions is if you try to add multiple part pieces for something that's serialized, we immediately will come back to you and say, okay, you're gonna have to explain the situation to us because there can only be 1 piece per serialized part number. So say for this serialized part right here, you can see in his inventory, we're showing that he has 3 pieces of this micro pump manifold. He's got 3 different serialized parts. Say he finds another. He would come into here, he would say the part number, he would say the serial that he has, and he would say 1. I understand he has 4, but there's only 1 that he's trying to add into his inventory. And if you want to put a note onto the side that says, you know, total, I have 4, that matches out. That all makes sense, but we want to make sure that that works. John, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead. What can I help with?
Can you edit that spreadsheet to put just verbiage so as a reminder down the road in case someone forgets to say material / part number?
Sure. Yeah.
That'd make
Actually,
it
I'll
easier.
just change this to part number because we That's what we want.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. Yeah. Any other question? That was it? Okay. And actually, let me come back to you, John. Did that answer your question about the OEM? So you've got parts that are kind of outside of what was on your report. You would then put that on this sheet. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it's extremely helpful because I have done very little VP4 work and I haven't had to use my own parts that I received when I got trained. So
Okay.
my list that I've already done, and Heather, I'm ready for this spreadsheet whenever you can get it to me. That should help because I've already done it. I've got a pad of paper here where I went and did it blind yesterday, so I'm ready to put it on the spreadsheet.
Awesome.
If it's not there, I'll make a note of it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get them to you, and I'll put a note that to you today instead, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to just make sure everybody's aligned too, because you've got Neptune and TSO3. We're only talking TSO3 parts. If for some reason you're like, I don't know if that's a Neptune or a TSO3 part, any added on here, that's perfectly fine. We'll be able to figure that out ourselves and say, appreciate you letting us know that you got 10 of those, but honestly, we're not going to make any changes there unless it's something that's way off. Any other questions about the sheet? All right, I'm just gonna go right back to our calendar. So kind of went through that whole thing. You're gonna basically put all your information in there. You're gonna send it back to Heather. She's gonna send it back to us. We're gonna work through reconciliation. Because we did such a good job, we're not gonna have any questions, hopefully. The only other thing I do want to call out that would be kind of outside of your guys's bounds of knowledge is that we may reach out if we've taken a very large loss in your location. And so I'm going to start off by saying VP4 has been a mess since we've started. It has been inventory all over the place. There's been lots of problems. I don't want that to be a reason why we're taking huge losses and saying, well, that's why, but it has been true. So if we get to a point where we're like, oh, we're taking the entire location is being out or has been lost, we may come to you and ask some questions. Where did we transfer this to? Where should it be? Where can we find this inventory if you haven't consumed it on a work order? Because we really want to understand, are we missing a location that we didn't do a physical inventory on? We're only doing physical inventories for MSAR, and these locations, you might have moved some things to Striker Text. That's okay to call out. If you want to even put that on this sheet, that's what these notes are for, is to say, I moved all of my inventory to this person. I sent them everything I had, because then I can take that against the physical inventory, hopefully that person is doing, and make sure that they're taking that gain. So that would be the only reason why we would also come back to you outside of your regular outside of us possibly having a problem with your physical inventory sheets. But other than that, hopefully it would be very quick. We get to reconciliation, we'd send you the freeze note, or we'd send Heather the freeze note, and then she would send it out to the group. Any questions on the overall process? That's all I have for the training. Awesome.
Hey, I'm gonna ask John Kuehl, since you're on, I didn't hear back from Dave. Are you planning on counting this coming up week or the first week in March?
I can do it first week of March. I can squeeze it in. I'm not currently doing any VP4 work because I do not have any testing equipment, and I haven't touched the unit in over almost 3 months now.
Sounds good. I'll put you on the calendar for then, and we'll plan to send you. So that is a good note for everybody that's doing it the second week. That same calendar is just going to move out a week. So essentially you'll get everything out to you just the following week after that.
So
Awesome.
all I need to do is get you an answer on Henry today, and the FOM did respond to me this morning saying he's just waiting on him to call him back. So I will get that for you today.
Perfect. Okay. Sounds
Cool.
good. Awesome. So I'm going to stop recording.